Hey everyone, I am Nidhi Sharma and welcome to Economics Decoction where I share the essence of economics. So in this video we are going to discuss all about elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand is one of the most important topics of economics and it is widely used in various other topics as well. So make sure that you watch this video till the end and you do not miss even a single second of this video to get a complete idea regarding different types of elasticities of demand. We will basically talk about what is price elasticity of demand, cross elasticity of demand, income elasticity of demand, and also what are five different conditions of elasticity, that is relatively elastic demand, relatively inelastic demand, what is unitary elastic demand, perfectly elastic demand, perfectly inelastic demand. Everything is going to be covered in this video and you are at the right place. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And also, if you find this video to be helpful, make sure that you hit the like button as well. So without further delay, let's get started with this video. First of all, what is elasticity? Elasticity basically means responsiveness. In one word, we can say elasticity means responsiveness. Elasticity is a measure of a variable's sensitivity to a change in another variable. Most commonly, sensitivity of a change in of quantity demanded relative to any change in any other factor is basically measured by elasticity. So we can clearly say how will the quantity demanded of a commodity respond to a change in any other determinants is basically elasticity. Sorry. So different economic variables affecting demand of a commodity are price of a commodity, price of related commodities, and income of the consumer. So these are three of the most important components which affect demand of a commodity by a consumer. So on the basis of different factors affecting quantity demanded for a product, elasticity of demand is basically categorized into three categories. One is price elasticity of demand, another is cross elasticity of demand, and income elasticity of demand. So let's understand each of them one by one. Let's first begin by price elasticity of demand. The variation in demand in response to variation in price of the commodity is known as price elasticity of demand. So when the quantity demanded of a commodity changes or it responds to a change in price of the commodity, we can analyze what is the elasticity or what is the price elasticity of demand. So basically it can also be defined as the ratio of percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in price of a particular commodity. Price elasticity of demand is measured as percentage change in quantity demanded due to 1% change in price of the commodity, that is own price of the commodity. For example, we can understand that what will be the change in quantity demanded of a biscuit due to 1% change in its price. For example, if we increase the price of a packet of biscuit by 1%, how much will the quantity demanded of that biscuit fall down? This basically will show with the help of elasticity of demand. This relationship or this sensitivity of change in demand of biscuits due to change in the price of biscuits basically shows us the elasticity. So I hope the idea of elasticity of price elasticity of demand is clear to you. So now how we will calculate the price elasticity of demand? So the formula for the coefficient of price elasticity of demand for a good is given as PED, that means price elasticity of demand, is equal to delta Q by Q divided by delta P by P. So delta Q means change in quantity demanded by Q, that is the initial quantity demanded, divided by delta P, that is change in price divided by initial price. So this basically shows how what will be the percentage change in quantity demanded due to 1% change in own price of the commodity. So this is basically the idea of price elasticity of demand. Now let's proceed further to cross elasticity of demand. Just like price elasticity of demand dealt with change in quantity demanded due to change in own price of the commodity, Cross elasticity of demand shows us change in quantity demanded of a commodity due to change in price of related commodities. So cross elasticity of demand is an economic concept that measures the sensitivity of quantity demanded of one good, that is X, when there is a change in price of another good, that is Y. And that's why it is also known as cross price elasticity of demand, because here we can say that how is the quantity demanded of good X changes due to change in price of another good, that is Y. How change in price of Y leads to a change in quantity demanded of X. This sensitiveness is shown with the help of cross elasticity of demand. So how can we calculate the cross elasticity of demand? Cross elasticity of demand is calculated as percentage change in quantity demanded of good X divided by percentage change in price of another good, that is of good Y. So this formula will give us the value of cross elasticity of demand. Now we come to income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand refers to the sensitivity of quantity demanded of a certain good to a change in real income. Mind it, it is due to change in real income, that is the income earned by an individual after accounting for inflation of the consumer who buys these goods keeping all other things constant. So you all know that inflation is a constant and a persistent rise, a considerable rise and a persistent rise in the general price level is known as inflation. Okay, so a constant and a considerable persistent increase in general price level is referred to as inflation. So when we analyze the sensitivity of quantity demanded of a good due to change in real income, that is after the income of a consumer after taking into account the inflation, that is real income, we get the income elasticity of demand. So the formula to calculate the income elasticity of demand is given as percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in income. So this will show us how change in income will lead to a change in quantity demanded by a consumer. Now we get 5 different types of elasticities. One is elastic demand, that is when the value of price elasticity of demand or any elasticity of demand would be greater than 1. In that case, when the elasticity of demand is greater than 1, then we can call it as elastic demand. And when the value of elasticity is equal to 1, then it will be called as unitary elastic demand. And if the value of elasticity is less than 1, then it will be called as inelastic demand. And in case of perfectly elastic demand and perfectly inelastic demand, we see that if the value of elasticity is equal to infinity, then it is perfectly elastic demand. And if the value of elasticity is equal to 0, that means it is perfectly inelastic demand. Now, you don't need to worry. We are going to discuss each of these cases one by one shortly. So, let's begin with elastic demand. So, this cloud shows us the condition of elastic demand. What is that? When the value of elasticity is greater than 1, then we call it as elastic demand. Now, what is elastic demand? Elastic demand refers to a demand when the proportionate change in the demand is greater than the proportionate change in price of the good. So, for example, if the price of the good has increased by 25%, then necessarily if the elasticity of demand, if the price of the good increases by 25%, then the quantity demanded will reduce by more than 25%. This will show us that the value of elasticity is greater than 1 because the proportionate change in quantity demanded is more as compared to the proportionate change in price. We can also say if the price falls down by 25%, the quantity demanded increases by more than 25%, then it will be called as elastic demand or a relatively elastic demand. And this will fetch us the value of elasticity of demand to be greater than 1. And as you can see that the demand curve in case of elastic demand would be have a flatter slope. So we can clearly see in the diagram as well that when the price has fallen from P to P1, that is, there is a small reduction in the price, but the quantity demanded has increases significantly. That means the proportionate increase in the quantity demanded is more than proportionate decrease in the price level. So this is the case of elasticity of elastic demand, or a relatively elastic demand, where the value of elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Now, what is the case of unitary elastic demand? As you all know, when the elasticity of demand is equal to 1, we will call it as unitary elastic demand. So, here the proportionate change in price level would have an equal proportionate change in quantity demanded. That means if the price increases by 25%, the quantity demanded decreases by 25%. If the price decreases by 25%, the quantity demanded increases by 25%. So the proportionate change, the proportionate variation between the price level and the quantity demanded would be equal. So this will give us a unitary elastic demand where the value of elasticity of demand is equal to 1. And the demand curve in case of unitary elastic demand would be a rectangular hyperbola. You can see in the diagram, this is a rectangular hyperbola demand curve. Let's proceed to inelastic demand. So when the value of elasticity is less than 1, then it can be called as inelastic demand. So in case of inelastic demand, the proportionate change in quantity demanded for a product is always less than the proportionate change in the price level. So what we can see here is that when the price decreases by a significant amount, that means say 25%, the increase in quantity demanded is very less. That is, it is quite considerably less than 25%. As we can see in the diagram itself, the price has decreased from P to P1 and there is a considerable fall in the price level. But the increase in quantity demanded is not much. That is just from Q to Q1, which is very less in comparison to the fall in the price level. So this shows us inelastic demand situation and the demand curve in this case would have a steeper slope, as you can see in the diagram itself. Next, we get the case of perfectly elastic demand, where the value of elasticity is equal to infinity. And in this case, the demand curve is parallel to the horizontal axis. It is a straight line parallel to the horizontal axis. So what does the condition of perfectly elastic demand states? In perfectly elastic demand, even a small rise in price can result to a fall in demand of a good to zero, whereas a small decline in price can increase the demand to infinity. So basically, in case of perfectly elastic demand, even the minutest change in price can lead to a considerable response in quantity demanded. It is clearly written there. When a small increase in price can lead to fall in quantity demanded to zero, or even a little bit of decrease in price can lead to infinite increase in quantity demanded. So this is a condition of perfectly elastic demand. However, perfectly elastic demand is a totally theoretical concept. We generally do not find its real application, but still we have to learn this concept, and the degree the slope of the demand curve will be a straight line that is parallel to the horizontal axis. Okay, I hope the concept of perfectly elastic demand is clear to you, and that's why the value of elasticity is infinity, because even a small change in price is going to have an infinite change in quantity demanded. Next, we move to the case of perfectly inelastic demand. This is a case when the value of elasticity is equal to 0. So in perfectly inelastic demand, when there is no change in demand measured against a change in price, price may change by any proportion. The quantity demanded would be constant. That means we will not observe any change in quantity demanded due to a change in price. Then we can call it as a case of perfectly inelastic demand. I have also discussed about this perfectly inelastic demand in my recent video of regarding types of goods. There we saw that the necessity goods had a perfectly inelastic demand. I have mentioned this in the section of necessity goods. So there we can see that the life-saving drugs or salt, food, these things generally have an inelastic demand. The things which are very necessary for human existence have an inelastic demand. So do check that video as well. There also you can get this example of necessary goods that they have a perfectly inelastic demand where the value of elasticity is equal to 0. And just like perfectly elastic demand, this is just a theoretical concept. However, in case of necessary goods, we generally find perfectly inelastic demand. And the slope of the demand curve is a straight line that is parallel to the vertical axis. Now one more thing you all must have observed, that by seeing the slope of the or shape of the demand curve, you can certainly come to a conclusion that what is going to be the value of elasticity. As you can see that in case of inelastic demand, the demand curve is a parallel to vertical axis. It's a straight line parallel to the vertical axis. Similarly, in case of relatively elastic demand, the slope of demand curve is flatter. In case of unitary elastic demand, it is a rectangular hyperbola. So you can also understand the value of elasticity by looking at the demand curve. The slope of the demand curve can tell us about the value of elasticity. Now, if we try to understand the value of elasticity in a single straight line demand curve, downward sloping straight line demand curve, then we can understand it with the help of this diagram. As we can see, we have taken quantity on the x-axis and the price on the y-axis or on the vertical axis. And A to D shows us a downward sloping straight line demand curve. At point A, the value of elasticity is equal to infinity. That means it is a perfectly elastic demand. Okay. So, in case of a straight line demand curve, the value of elasticity of demand can also be calculated as lower segment by upper segment. However, I will try to explain you this concept with the help of this diagram itself, where at point A, the elasticity of demand is equal to infinity. So this is the case of perfectly elastic demand. As we move down along the straight line demand curve, the value of elasticity starts reducing. When we move to point B, that there the value of elasticity has reduced to greater than 1. It is not infinity. So here we can see that this is the case of a relatively elastic demand where the value of elasticity is greater than 1. And similarly, if we move down more, if we jump from point B to C, we find that the elasticity is less than 1. That means it has got reduced considerably and it has reached to a situation when the demand is relatively inelastic. And if we move more further down to D, we get ED, that is elasticity of demand is equal to 0. This is the case of completely inelastic demand, or the inelastic demand, or a vertical demand curve which is parallel to the vertical axis. A straight line demand curve which is parallel to the vertical axis shows us the inelastic demand. So this is that case, the case of necessary goods. And we can see at point E, that is the center point of this straight line demand curve, there the elasticity of demand is equals to 1, or we can say it is unitary elastic at that point. So this entire diagram clearly shows us the different values of elasticities on a single demand curve, on a single straight line downward sloping demand curve. So I hope that the concept of elasticity is now absolutely crystal clear to you. And by this we come to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you really like this video, if you find this video to be helpful, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And also I'll see you soon in my next video. Till then, keep studying.